Disney World has been quietly retiring attractions for decades, usually with minimal warning, usually while simultaneously telling you how much they love the thing they're about to bury. 7 attractions currently operating at Walt Disney World are showing the specific signals that precede a closure: aging technology, dormant IP, declining show quality, footprint pressure, and the particular silence from Disney that means they're thinking about the real estate. Here are the 7 iconic Disney World attractions that will die next, and the question of which one dies first. Attraction 7, the Walt Disney World Railroad, Magic Kingdom. The Walt Disney World Railroad has circumnavigated Magic Kingdom since the park opened on October 1st, 1971. The 4 steam-powered trains, named Walter E. Disney, Lily Bell, Roger E. Broggie, and Roy O. Disney, run a 1.5-mile track around the perimeter of the park, stopping at Main Street USA, Frontierland, and Fantasyland. The trains are genuine 19th-century steam locomotives, originally built between 1916 and 1928 in the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico to serve the region's henequen, sisal fiber industry, and purchased by Disney specifically for the Magic Kingdom project. The railroad was Walt Disney's personal passion. He was an avid model train collector and built a working narrow-gauge train around his own Holmby Hills home in Los Angeles. The railroad was not an afterthought at Magic Kingdom. It was a design element that Walt specifically wanted from the beginning, and the park's layout was organized partly around the train's perimeter route. The Walt Disney World Railroad has been closed since December 2018, over 6 years as of 2025, due to the construction of Tron Light Cycle/Run, which required the railroad's track to be crossed by the new attractions structure at the Fantasyland station area. Disney has repeatedly indicated that the railroad will return to operation after Tron's construction was complete. Tron Light Cycle/Run opened in April 2023. The railroad is still closed. The specific concern is the delay between Tron's opening and any announced timeline for the railroad's return. Disney has not provided a specific reopening date as of 2025. The 6+ years of closure has meant that an entire cohort of Disney guests under approximately 8 years old has never ridden the Walt Disney World Railroad. The generational connection is being interrupted, and the question of whether Disney intends to restore the full railroad circuit or to quietly retire it during a construction closure has not been answered. The railroad's authentic steam operation, real coal and water-powered steam locomotives from the early 20th century, creates a specific maintenance and operational cost that modern electric alternatives would eliminate. The nostalgia value of the steam trains is real, but Disney's decision-making has consistently prioritized operational efficiency when nostalgia conflicts with it. As Disney Parks historian and author Jim Korkis, who has documented the Walt Disney World Railroad's history extensively, described the attraction's significance. The railroad was not just a transportation system or a theme, it was Walt's signature. The fact that it's been closed for 6 years without a clear reopening timeline is the kind of signal that makes people nervous. And they're right to be nervous. The 4 locomotives themselves are worth knowing about specifically. The Walter E. Disney locomotive, number 4, was built in 1916 by Baldwin Locomotive Works for the Ferrocarriles Unidos de Yucatan. The Lily Bell, number 1, was built in 1928. The Roger E. Broggie, number 3, and Roy O. Disney, number 2, are from similar Mexican industrial origins. Disney purchased all 4 locomotives in the late 1960s and had them restored for the Magic Kingdom opening in 1971. The fact that these are genuine 100-year-old steam locomotives maintained for theme park use is itself extraordinary. The maintenance cost and expertise required to keep antique steam engines in daily operating service is significantly higher than for modern electric or diesel alternatives. Disney has made no public statement about the status of the railroad since Tron opened in April 2023. For a company that announces everything it plans to open and usually announces closure dates when it decides to close things. The complete silence on an attraction that has been closed for over 6 years is documented and unusual. The railroad track crosses under the Tron structure at a point near the Fantasyland station, and the physical construction of that crossing would need to have been made compatible with train operation for the railroad to return. Whether it was, is not something Disney has addressed publicly. The specific scenario that the fan community watches for, a park map update that omits the Walt Disney World Railroad entirely, would be the first official signal that the closure has become permanent. As of the most recent publicly available park maps, the railroad is listed as temporarily closed. The word temporarily has now covered over 6 years. Attraction 6, Muppet Vision, 3D, Hollywood Studios. Muppet Vision 3D is a 4D theater attraction at Hollywood Studios that opened on May 16, 1991, making it one of the original Hollywood Studios attractions. And that represents the Muppets' most complete, most immersive, and most fully realized theme park presence anywhere in the Disney parks system. The pre-show area, the theater itself, and the 25-minute film were all created with direct involvement from Jim Henson, who died on May 16, 1990, exactly 1 year before the attraction opened, and whose Muppets characters became a Disney acquisition in 2004 when Disney purchased the Muppets characters from the Henson Company. The film itself is a genuine creative achievement, written by Jim Henson and directed by Brian Henson. It is a fully produced Muppet theatrical production that uses practical effects, audio animatronic figures built into the theater walls, and 3D projection in a combination that represents the peak of the format's creative ambition. The 25-minute length, the specific quality of the writing, and the integration of the theater environment into the film experience. The walls open, practical effects occur in the physical space, characters appear in the theater as well as on screen, produce an attraction experience that has no current equivalent anywhere in the Disney parks. The specific vulnerability of Muppet Vision 3D is its location. It sits in a courtyard in the Echo Lake area of Hollywood Studios that has been surrounded by the park's most active development since 2019. Star Wars: Galaxy's Edge opened in August 2019, immediately adjacent, and the broader Hollywood Studios transformation has prioritized IP-driven experiences throughout the park. The courtyard where Muppet Vision sits, including the Pizza Rizzo restaurant next door, which is itself operating intermittently, is documented by Disney observers as one of the last underdeveloped sections of the park in the current master plan context. The Muppets IP is active. The Muppets Mayhem series aired on Disney Plus in 2023, but the franchise's cultural peak passed some years ago, and the specific Muppet Vision attraction is 34 years old and running a film technology format, 3D theatrical, that has declined significantly in popularity as both a theatrical and a theme park format. Multiple Disney parks have been phasing out their 3D film attractions. Captain EO, Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, and others have all closed. Muppet Vision is the last of the flagship 3D theater attractions at Walt Disney World, the specific Jim Henson dimension of Muppet Vision. 3D gives it a gravity that most park attractions don't have. Henson died on May 16, 1990, at age 53 from organ failure caused by Group A streptococcal infection, an illness that progressed with extraordinary speed. He died less than 24 hours after being hospitalized. The attraction that opened exactly 1 year later on May 16, 1991, is the last major creative project he was directly involved in, and the final original production featuring the Muppet characters under his direct creative supervision before his death. For the significant portion of Disney's 35-plus guest population who grew up with the Muppets as a defining cultural presence, The Muppet Show ran from 1976 to 1981. The original Muppet movie was released in 1979. The Muppets Take Manhattan in 1984. Muppet Vision 3D is specifically the place where those characters were preserved at the height of their cultural moment. the specific Henson-era humor, the specific quality of the Fozzie Bear and Gonzo and Sam the Eagle characterizations in the film represent a version of the Muppets that even dedicated fans acknowledge has not been fully reproduced in any post-Henson production. Disney's challenge with Muppet Vision 3D is therefore culturally specific. Closing, it means closing the last Henson-supervised Muppet production in a Disney park. That is not a casual decision. But maintaining it means maintaining 34-year-old 3D film technology in a theater format that is declining across the theme park industry for a franchise whose current cultural moment is significantly less than it was when the film was made. Attraction 5, Spaceship Earth, Epcot. Spaceship Earth is the most photographed structure at Walt Disney World. The 180-foot geodesic sphere that is the architectural icon of Epcot, and the dark ride inside it is the original attraction of the park, having operated since Epcot opened on October 1st, 1982. The ride narrates the history of human communication, from prehistoric cave paintings through the current era, in a slow-moving omnimover vehicle that spirals upward through the sphere's interior. Spaceship Earth has been sponsored 3 times during its existence. First, by AT&T, 1982 to 2004, then by Siemens, 2005 to 2017, and currently has no corporate sponsor. Each sponsorship change brought a partial redesign of the attraction. The current version of Spaceship Earth, which opened in 2008 following a Siemens-sponsored refurbishment that added the interactive future sequence and the facial recognition photo element at the end of the ride, is now 17 years into operation without major updates. The attraction's vulnerability is not the content. The history of human communication is genuinely Epcot appropriate and does not date in the way that the Carousel of Progress's future scene dates. The vulnerability is the physical state of the attraction, the continued absence of a corporate sponsor willing to fund a major refurbishment, and the specific signal from Disney's creative leadership. In 2019, Disney's then chairman of parks and resorts, Bob Chapek, announced a complete reimagining of Spaceship Earth as part of the Epcot transformation. The announcement included a description of a new narrative that would replace the current communication history storyline. Fan reaction was mixed. Some welcomed the update, others were protective of the current show, particularly the beloved Judi Dench narration added in the 2008 version. By 2021, the reimagining had been quietly dropped from Disney's announced plans. Without a clear explanation, the status of Spaceship Earth's long-term future remains officially unaddressed. A major attraction inside the park's architectural centerpiece, without a sponsor, with a dropped reimagining plan, in a park undergoing comprehensive transformation, is not in a stable position. It is in a position that requires a clear decision about whether to invest in it significantly or to eventually close it. The physical state of Spaceship Earth's show elements is a specific concern for visitors who have been riding it for decades. The audio animatronic figures in the attraction, depicting scenes from prehistoric communication, ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, Rome, the Dark Ages, the Renaissance, and the Industrial Revolution, were installed at various points across the attraction's update history. The oldest figures date to the attraction's 1982 opening or to its 1994 refurbishment. Some of the figures have had documented performance issues, with limited movement or frozen positions observed by guests in specific scenes. The narration track currently used, recorded by Dame Judi Dench as part of the 2008 Siemens refurbishment, is considered by many of the attraction's fans to be its best version, following 2 previous narrators, Larry Dobkin for the original 1982 version and Jeremy Irons for the 1994 version. Judi Dench's narration remains in the current attraction, and the specific attachment to her voice performance is part of the protective feeling the fan community has for the 2008 version. The geodesic sphere that is the attraction's exterior, the 180-foot structure that has been the logo of Epcot since the park opened, cannot close. The structure itself is the park's defining visual identity and would remain regardless of what happens to the ride inside it. Disney could close the Spaceship Earth ride while keeping the exterior structure as Epcot's trademark icon, install something entirely different inside, and maintain the visual continuity of the park's signature image. The building and the attraction inside it are separable in a way that changes the closure calculus. Attraction 4, The Seas with Nemo and Friends, Epcot. The Seas Pavilion at Epcot contains one of the largest inland saltwater aquariums in the world, approximately 5.7 million gallons of seawater, holding approximately 65 species of sea life, including sharks, rays, sea turtles, and thousands of fish. The aquarium is a genuine scientific and educational achievement and is the core of the pavilion's original Epcot concept. The ride that now carries visitors through the pavilion, The Seas with Nemo and Friends, is a slow-moving clamshell ride that replaced the original Hydrolase and Sea Base Alpha experience in 2007. The current ride uses animation projected onto the aquarium's actual fish tanks, with animated versions of the Finding Nemo characters appearing to swim among the real fish. The concept is clever. The real fish and the animated fish share the same visual space, blending reality and animation in a way that is technically interesting, even if the execution is now 18 years old. The specific vulnerability: Finding Nemo and Finding Dory are Pixar films from 2003 and 2016. The franchise has no current content pipeline. No Finding Nemo 3 is in production or announced. The characters are beloved classics, but Disney's recent park investment strategy has consistently prioritized IP with active franchise pipelines. A pavilion whose ride is themed to a franchise with no upcoming content is exactly the kind of attraction that becomes a reimagining candidate. The aquarium itself is essentially untouchable. It requires years of preparation to change its biological population, and it is an operational achievement that Disney would not simply close. The physical Seas building, the aquarium, and the pavilion infrastructure will remain. What the ride themed to a dormant franchise becomes is the question, and the question is open. The original Seas Pavilion concept, Sea Base Alpha, was Epcot at its most genuinely ambitious. The original vision was a simulated undersea research station where guests would observe actual marine research being conducted in the aquarium, blending entertainment with real science in the way Epcot's founding concept intended. Guests entered via simulated hydrolators that provided the impression of descending to an underwater depth, then explored the aquarium level as if they were inside a working marine research facility. The concept was ahead of its time and is, by most Epcot-era standards, one of the most genuinely educational experiences the park ever attempted. The Finding Nemo-themed version that replaced the original in 2007 is considerably more accessible to young visitors and considerably less aligned with Epcot's original educational mission. The clamshell ride and the animated Nemo characters projected onto the real tanks produce an experience that is pleasant and appropriate for young children, and that does not require any existing interest in marine science to engage with. Whether that trade represents a net improvement for the pavilion depends on which version of Epcot's purpose you are assessing it against. The Pacific Coast Aquarium at the Seas Pavilion itself, the 5.7 million gallon tank, contains some of the most compelling wildlife viewing at Walt Disney World that most guests walk past without registering as remarkable. The tank's resident sea turtles, which have been in the facility for decades and are part of a sea turtle rehabilitation program, are the specific seas inhabitants that repeat visitors consistently describe as their reason for returning to the pavilion. The turtles will outlast whatever the ride above them becomes. Attraction 3, Ellen's Energy Adventure / Universe of Energy Site. Epcot, the Universe of Energy Pavilion in Epcot's Future World, opened in 1982, was entirely reimagined in 1996 as Ellen's Energy Adventure, and then permanently closed on August 13th, 2017. The building has been closed for 8 years as of 2025, and whatever is planned for the site has not been publicly announced. The reason this closed attraction earns a position on this list is that the site represents the largest single undeveloped or undisclosed footprint in Epcot. The Universe of Energy building is a massive structure, approximately 65,000 square feet, on prime Epcot real estate at the corner of the park's original Future World layout. 8 years of closure with no announced replacement is an extraordinary amount of time for Disney to leave a building of this size empty in its flagship Epcot transformation effort. The $60 billion global parks investment announced in 2024 presumably includes a use for this footprint. Whatever is announced for the Universe of Energy site will be a significant Epcot addition. The scale of the building and its location demands something major, but the 8-year silence on the site during a period when Disney has been publicly announcing multiple other Epcot development projects is unusual enough to warrant inclusion here as a specific documented case of a Disney building that has been waiting longer than any current waiting period at the park. The specific question is not whether something is coming, something is clearly coming, but whether the announced and delivered attraction will match the potential of the footprint. The Universe of Energy building represents the longest unresolved development question in Epcot's current transformation story. The original Universe of Energy attraction, which opened in 1982, was sponsored by ExxonMobil and presented the history and future of energy production with full-scale audio-animatronic dinosaurs in a naturalistic prehistoric environment. It was one of the most physically ambitious dark rides at Epcot, with a ride system that moved the entire theater seating section through the attraction on motorized flatbed platforms. The 1996 Ellen's Energy Adventure Reimagining retained the same basic ride system, but replaced the energy industry content with a celebrity-hosted game show format featuring Ellen DeGeneres and Bill Nye, the Science Guy, which played from 1996 until the August 2017 closure. The specific reason the site has been empty for 8 years without a public announcement is not entirely explained by Epcot's broader transformation pace. Other Epcot projects, Guardians of the Galaxy, Cosmic Rewind, the Connections Cafe and Eatery, the World Celebration Area, were announced and delivered on timelines of 3 to 5 years. The Universe of Energy building has now been closed for 2 years longer than it took to build Cosmic Rewind from announcement to opening. Whatever the complication is, whether it is a financing question, a creative direction dispute, a sponsor negotiation, or a strategic question about Epcot's overall layout, it has kept the largest available development site in the park empty while the transformation around it has proceeded. That is unusual for Disney, even by Disney's unhurried planning standards. Attraction 2, Mission Space Epcot. Mission Space is a centrifuge-based spaceflight simulation attraction in Epcot that opened on August 15, 2003. The Orange Mission, Mars Mission version uses a centrifuge that generates 2.5 times the gravitational force, producing the sensation of acceleration and re-entry that is unique among theme park attraction experiences in the United States. The Green Mission, Earth Orbit version, uses the same capsule environment without the centrifuge motion for guests who prefer or require a less intense experience. Mission Space's specific vulnerability is its physical equipment. The centrifuge mechanism that produces the Orange Mission's distinctive intensity is extraordinary engineering, a ride system that genuinely creates the physiological sensation of high gravity, used by NASA astronaut training programs as a conceptual analog. It is also mechanical equipment from 2003 that has been operating under high-stress cyclical loading for over 20 years. The medical incidents associated with Mission Space's Orange Mission. There have been documented deaths and medical emergencies at the attraction, including 2 deaths in 2005 and 2006, resulted in Disney adding warning signage, conducting health assessments at the queue entry, and adding the Green Mission No Spin alternative in 2006. The medical history of the attraction is public and has been part of its operational context since opening. The specific concern about Mission Space's future is not primarily the medical history. Disney has managed that operationally for nearly 20 years. It is the combination of aging centrifuge equipment requiring increasing maintenance investment, the relatively modest IP of the generic spaceflight theme with no franchise connection, and the EPCOT transformation context. The Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind opened in 2022 as a space-themed thrill attraction in the same world discovery neighborhood of Epcot. 2 space-themed thrill rides in the same Epcot quadrant is one more space-themed thrill ride than most parks have. Attraction 1. The Hall of Presidents, Magic Kingdom. The Hall of Presidents in Liberty Square, Magic Kingdom, opened with the park on October 1st, 1971, an original opening day attraction, and presents audio animatronic representations of every president of the United States in a theatrical show that combines a historical film about American democracy with the staged appearance of the full presidential lineup. Each new presidential administration requires Disney to add a new presidential figure, program new dialogue, and update the show's content. The Hall of Presidents is the most politically complex attraction in Walt Disney World's history, and the complexity has intensified in the current political environment. The tradition of the sitting president recording a speech for the attraction, a practice that has produced documented controversy with each recent update, from the George W. Bush figure's speech to the Barack Obama figure's speech to the Donald Trump figure, whose addition generated significant public controversy in 2017, places Disney in the position of representing the sitting president with a programmed audio animatronic speech during every administration. The specific documented difficulty: every update to the Hall of Presidents for a new president generates controversy from one political direction or another. The Trump administration's figure required Disney to navigate requests about what the figure would say and what its physical appearance would be. The Biden administration's figure was added quietly by comparison. Whatever the figure for the current administration says or doesn't say, the attraction's content is now a political communication event as much as a historical entertainment one. The Hall of Presidents is the only Disney attraction that requires Disney to make a politically sensitive content decision every 4 to 8 years as a condition of maintaining the show's relevance. The building in Liberty Square is a significant structure. The show's original concept, a celebration of American democratic continuity, is one that has been genuinely complicated by the specific direction of American politics since 2016. Disney, which manages the parks as a destination for guests from across the political spectrum and from around the world, has found the Hall of Presidents increasingly difficult to update without generating some segment of its audience's negative response. A future in which Disney quietly allows the Hall of Presidents to become a historical artifact, a show that depicts presidents up to a certain point and stops updating, is plausible. A future in which Disney closes the attraction and converts Liberty Square's theatrical space to something that does not require biennial political decisions is more plausible. The Hall of Presidents is a genuinely iconic Disney World original. It may also be the original Disney World attraction that the current political environment makes impossible to maintain on its original terms. The original Hall of Presidents, which opened in 1971 with a film written by historian Joe Reddy and featuring audio recorded by the actual Abraham Lincoln audio animatronic figure developed for the 1964 to 1965 World's Fair, was a specific product of a political era when American presidential history could be presented as a unified, patriotic narrative accessible to guests across the political spectrum. The specific content of the show, the film narrated by Maya Angelou in the 2017 version, updated again for subsequent administrations, has remained fundamentally the same in concept. An inspirational presentation of American democratic history leading to the assembled presidents standing together. The physical production quality of the Hall of Presidents is extraordinary. The audio animatronic figures, 46 of them as of the Biden administration's edition, each representing a president with individually crafted likeness and period-appropriate costuming, represent one of the most technically demanding ongoing animatronics programs in Disney's park system. Each new presidential figure requires facial scanning or reference-based sculpture, costume research and fabrication, and programming that must match the figure to historical movement references and to the recorded dialogue. The attraction's specific political sensitivity since 2017 is worth documenting. The Trump figure generated documented public controversy before its opening, with specific public debate about whether Disney would include a speech from the then president and what that speech would say. The Biden figure's edition received comparatively little attention. The specific direction of American political polarization means that future presidential editions will require Disney to navigate an audience that includes people who believe strongly that the current president should be depicted heroically, and people who believe equally strongly that they should not be depicted at all. There is no version of that decision that satisfies everyone, and the escalating intensity of the polarization makes it harder with each cycle. The Liberty Square Theater building that houses the Hall of Presidents is a significant structure with a fully equipped theatrical space. Its footprint could accommodate a different use without difficulty. Whether Disney treats the Hall of Presidents as a protected historical original or as a politically untenable obligation will be determined by the specific calculation of the next presidential administration update, the moment when Disney has to decide, for a real person and a real political context, what the figure says and what it represents. 7 attractions, a steam railroad closed for 6 years and counting, a Muppet film that is the last of its kind, the most iconic structure at Epcot running without a sponsor or a stated future, a Nemo ride in a pavilion whose franchise has no pipeline, an 8-year empty building nobody has announced a plan for, a centrifuge simulator from 2003 with a medical history, and a Hall of Presidents whose update every 4 years has become a political event. Disney has not announced the closure of any of them. Disney rarely does. Hit that like button and subscribe. More content like this coming.